Hello, I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine, Content Specialist for the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship, which is part of the School of Politics, Security, and International Affairs at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. Welcome to our Middle School Civics Highlights series. Today we look at benchmark CG.3.2. Explain the advantages of a federal system of government over other systems in balancing local sovereignty with national unity and protecting against authoritarianism. In Part 1, we focus on understanding federal, confederal, and unitary systems of government and comparing the organizational structures of systems of government. We will be looking at Benchmark Clarification 1 and Benchmark Clarification 2. In Benchmark Clarification 1, students apply their understanding of federal, confederal, and unitary systems of government, and in Benchmark Clarification 2, students compare the organizational structures of systems of government. What are federal, confederal, and unitary systems of government, and how do organizational structures of systems of government compare to one another? First, let's differentiate federal, confederal, and unitary systems of government. In a federal system, power is shared between the central government and the states. We also know the central government to be the national government. This is the one government that oversees the entire nation. In a federal system, citizens elect members of the legislative branch, the executive branch, and some members of the judicial branch. This means that people have a meaningful say in who governs. They have a meaningful say in who the lawmakers are, who the law enforcers are, and also have a meaningful say, depending on the level of government, who serves in the judiciary branch, who serves in a justice-related capacity. In a confederal system, power is given to independent states, and there is little or no central power. Citizens elect members of the legislative branch, the executive branch, and some members of the judicial branch. So we see that federal and confederal are very similar to one another in that the people play a significant role as to who holds power in different branches of government. And as we can also see, who holds power is very similar between the federal and confederal system, where the people can elect members of the legislative and executive branch, but there are limitations as to who in the judicial branch is elected versus who is appointed. In a unitary system, it is the national government, referred to here as the unit, that conducts all government functions. The unit may choose to delegate powers to smaller government units such as state. So when we talk about delegating powers, basically what the unit is doing is giving some of its power to a lower part of the government, such as the national government giving power to the states or the state government giving powers to the local governments. And so this concept of a unitary government does not mean that the national government holds all the power. It means that the national government can hold all the power, but at the same time, that national government can give some of its power to the state or the local governments. So we see meaningful differences and similarities across a federal, confederal, and unitary form of government. We will now look at each of the three systems that we've just introduced. In a federal system, power is shared and divided between the central government and the states. The citizens elect officials at all levels of government. Let's look at the information graphic on the right. Here we see that there is a power sharing that takes both directions, from the national government to the states and from the states back up to the national government. between the national government and the state government. So this power sharing between the states and the national government promotes a working relationship, allows both the national government to work with the state governments and the state governments to work with the national government. So this is very important because it means that there are going to be times when the state government is best suited to handle issues, and there are going to be times when the national government is best suited to handle issues. And so this federal system, where the direction and flow of power go both from the states to the national government or from the national government back to the state government, plays an important role in keeping the lines of communication open and maintaining that relationship. A confederal system is very different. In a confederal system, independent states have their own powers. There is no central government in a confederal system, and citizens elect officials of their own state for the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. This means that the flow of power goes in one direction. This means that the states give power to the national government, but the national government is limited to how much power it has based on the state's discretion and the state's decision making. So see how this is different from the federal system, where those black arrows that we see had arrows going up between the states and the national government, and also arrows going in the other direction from the national government to the state government. This is very different from a confederal system. But what this also achieved in the United States is a system where the national government was weak because power was focused at the state level, and the states were very hesitant to give up power to the national government. What about a unitary system? In a unitary system, the central government has all the power. The people do not participate in the selection of leaders, and the central government makes all decisions for the country. Now, there may be times when the national government decides to give some of its power to the state government in a unitary system. The national government may decide that it's an issue that it doesn't want to manage. It may decide that there might be a particular issue that the people who are closer to the government are best suited to handle this issue. So that means that a state government might be better suited to handle a local issue or something like that. But eventually, it is always up to the national unit to decide whether the smaller government units have any power and what that power is going to be. So one of the issues that we have here in Florida and in other states is something called home rule. Home rule is when a higher level government, such as the state government as the unit in this context, decides to allow cities to govern themselves in particular ways. The state might pass a law saying that a city government cannot issue parking tickets, for example. And that means that even though the city government might want to issue parking tickets to discourage people from parking where they shouldn't, if the state government says to those cities, you are not allowed to fine people for parking in the wrong spot and issuing tickets for parking in the wrong spot, there's nothing that that city government can do except perhaps to go to court and ask the court to look at the state governing documents to confirm whether or not the state government has that particular power. This means that cities can only take the power that they may want or desire in a home rule situation if the state has taken, in essence, a hands-off approach to the city having certain powers. Thank you for joining me for Middle School Civics Highlights. Do you still have questions? If so, please contact us using the information that appears on the screen. Till next time, I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine. Thank you for joining me.